Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt once again from Divination Counseling Service, here today to present the new moon chart of May 30th, 2022. This particular new moon features a 9-degree Gemini sun and moon. It's actually exactly 9 degrees 3 minutes. So I'm going to say 9 degrees for our math. So when we do our axis, we're going to work right around 9 degrees. So with that said, I want to first of all thank you for watching this video. I want to thank most particularly my subscribers. Thank you for helping me build the channel. And if you would, please share, like, comment. And most importantly, if you're watching this video and you're not a subscriber, I hope you'll consider becoming one. So we're going to turn to the chart of the new moon on 5/30/22. We are going to look at this chart for Washington, D.C., because I do live on the East Coast. I live very within driving distance to Washington, D.C. But realize that depending on where you are in the world, your outer chart is going to look very different. However, your axis will be the same. So let's go and check out and look at what is going on in the new moon chart and whether or not it pulls in some of the activities that we had talked about in the previous video, where we saw the Mars ingress into Aries and the Venus ingress into Taurus. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. There is a correlation between these two charts. One factor is that you had Mars ingressing on the 24th of March, Venus ingressing on the 28th of May. It's still retrograde, that Mercury. So we're looking at May 24th for Aries ingress. We're looking at May 28th for Venus retrograde. And we're looking at the new moon of May 30th, 2 days later. So let's check out the new moon and see where the correlating conversations are occurring with these planets. Though I do want to talk about some house placements, because one of the things I want to try to get it for all of us in the habit of doing, regardless of where you live, you do want to do this for your own locale. And what you want to do is you do want to look at what rules this chart, ironically, the moon. The moon and the sun in this Washington, D.C. chart happen to be in the 12th house. There's a lot of unknown factors in the 12th house, and it sort of correlates with the Mars ingress chart, where we see that there's information coming that's going to be unpredictable, and the reactions will be unpredictable, and it's going to inflame anger. You can see that Mars and Jupiter are still conjuncting in the new moon chart. Okay, we're going to get back to Letitia's and a few of the other things that were kind of disruptive to those two energies as we look at this chart. This chart not only features a 12th house sun and moon, but on the cusp we have a few things that we can look at here with regards to what is hanging out on the cusp. Like, for example, our first cusp, which it's hard to tell on this chart because that 12th house is so large. But the first thing is that we see that there is a 3-degree of Cancer rising, which means that, of course, moon rules it. Moon happens to be in Gemini in the 12th, so it means it's in a house that is intercepted. Notice that the house ruler is in Taurus, okay? And that the sun and moon are in Gemini. And if you notice over here, you see that this is an intercepted house. So it means that in an interception, there's a lot to learn before you could take advantage of the Gemini. All right. In other words, you have to first be Taurus. You have to learn Taurus lessons in order to make the most of that Gemini. So that's a factor. The other thing that's worth looking at here is that this 3-degree house has a 3-degree right on the ascendant, Proserpina. I'm sorry, Persephone. Proserpina, Persephone are read the same way. They look different. One has arms, one doesn't. This doesn't. But what it means is that there's a sense of being alone. There's a sense of going something on your own, doing things on your own, or having to go off on your own. It's journeys that we can only do alone in life. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Now this is DC chart. If you're anywhere else in the world, that will not necessarily be true. The next houses that I wanted to look at were, I like the straddling two of that 3 and 6 right there, but 6 is an aspect if you were to study the angles of the chart. I'm not going to spend any time doing that, but I do want to point out that it does make parents feel very alone, and in particular motherhood. And the attack that's happening to women right now is very serious in the United States. Okay, so then we're going to go all the way down to the 4th house cusp where we see this dependency. So we're really dependent, whether we're in our family situation, close friends, but there are dependency issues in this chart. And they correlate with Juno, or partnerships. So it is partnerships where people are dependent on one another. Okay? Well, I can tell you right now, if you're in the United States, you're going to be seeing that they want to do away with our abortions. They're going to put a ban on them, and I think they will temporarily. But I also feel that there's this whole thing now where, do they realize it takes 2 people to create a baby? Because I'm kind of wondering about that. All the attacks are generated toward women. Where are the attacks toward men? It takes 2 people to bring about a baby. Dependency, okay? Dependency on Juno. Now, this is that chart, and so we'd say to anybody, okay, in this chart it has a bigger game plan, a bigger meaning. Now, it still tells you that in this chart at 12 degrees of mutable, Eurydice is opposite Juno. It's just the way it is. Now, the other thing we can point out here is that for the DC chart, it becomes more so because you remember that this going off on their own is sitting on the ascendant, and it's directly squaring the other partner. So take that for what you will. I know how I'm taking it. Now, at the same time that we had, and this is a little bit further away. So this is really actually questionable because it's like 2 degrees, almost exactly to the minute 2 degrees. But look at that Proserpina, which is the same thing as Persephone, going on your own. Only it's referring to day-to-day drudgery, tasks and duties, and our work. Could also be working remotely. But really interesting that there's a repeatable theme, and yet I know for a fact that these are not the angles that a lot of other charts are going to have when you do your own charts. On the 7th house, we have Cupido as fairly close to this descendant, but even closer, even right more on the money, is this sense of gloom and doom. And being on your own does bring about a sense of gloom and doom. And but it also deals with privacy issues. And then when you get to partners and dependencies, what about privacy issues? When you get to women's rights and about birth rights and reproductive rights, how does it have to deal with privacy issues? And there is a sense of gloom and doom on that. So I do know that during this time, I do believe they'll hear that case. Do I think this law will stand? Oh, heck no, I do not. But it is going to throw a lot of women for several months into a major tiz, at least until the elections, when I think that the Republicans will get themselves voted out. That's just my personal opinion. So then we go all the way up, and the 9th house cusp, let's talk about what that represents. Change. It represents change. And what do we have at the top? Interruptions and disruptions. that yes, I do believe we are going to hear something probably in the next month, and it is going to change direction. But believe me when I tell you, it's going to, it is really, here we go again, it is going to bring up partners. I already know some of the laws that some of the female lawmakers would throw up to counter some of this. I think that what's going to happen is that we're going to end up better when this is all over, that there will come from this some knowledge that will make this better all the way around. And that knowledge might be the fact that we have to stop looking at pro-choice or pro-life as a female issue and look at it as the issue that it is, because it is something that occurs in partnerships. It's not a female issue. It takes two people to create a child. Okay, so I did want to go through that because I felt that that was really, really important. Now, what I'd really like to do, as always, is to and I want everyone to do that. If you live in a different country, if you even live in California, do that and see how, particularly the whole being by yourself, the whole partner thing, and in the straddle here, even with this Cirrus, okay, I'd love to hear how different the charts are, or how they actually pull up that theme in a different way, which is what I guarantee you a lot of these charts will do. So with that said, I'm going to take this to the dial, okay? And in this dial, we really want to start right at this 9-degree point. And let's just look at it, okay? Look at Urania not far away. And it really places a huge emphasis on logical thinking and logical thought, okay? That the moon, not only, and the moon and the sun, not only being in Gemini, are asking us to gather information. And we're almost doing it, and some of it will be unknown. We have to research, we have to look it up, we have to do, but it's logic. We have to apply logic to what it is that we're finding out and figuring out. Okay, it's very important that we do that. Now, as we go to this 24 mark, and then we see how it does affect, we also then, in hindsight or retrospect, can look at how that logical thought is going to be very important, because there's a lot of psych wounding out there. A lot of people are psychologically wounded, whether it's from the pandemic or from things that they've suffered. But it does look as though a lot of people are suffering on a mental health basis. Now, it could be that we're hearing a lot about mental health, but it's equaling logic. Psyche, the intangible, is equaling a tangible. And could it be that some of what becomes known throughout this next new moon period, especially after 2 weeks, which means when we get to the full moon, what will be illuminated to us? Something will be, because in this axis, Uranus is still not far away. There we go. It's just amazing, okay? That unpredictability, that Uranus, that upset, that it's, and look, it's with advice, it's coming as we're being advised, we're being told, okay? And it's really is causing some issues, Psyche to Urania, okay? So it's really interesting. And how does it relate to new beginnings, what we're dealing with? Well, could it relate to the last 2 charts that I just got done doing, which talked about solutions for things that had been ongoing? Could that be a new beginning? So as I go through my list of asteroids, which I'm going to do here, we are looking at things like, yeah, that's right, faulty perceptions, how many people have had faulty perceptions. Remember that the last chart also incorporated lies. Are faulty perceptions the result of lies? But let's listen up, okay? Let's see, shall we? So as we go through and we deal with that, we also, as we say, have to realize that the idea of being credible is also going to be at play. So it's going to be important that whatever we hear that shakes us up, how credible is it? I'm going to go with, I think it's really credible. And I think that that could be a factor in all this, okay? Also, how much is going to come from our memories, and how much will our memories be triggered through this? Now, again, if you're in the United States, there is a January 6th commission which will begin airing on TV June 9th. Okay? And I think a lot's going to come out that is going to amaze us. And what it's going to also do is trigger our memory to things that were going on at the time that we were aware of, that we don't really know what it means. But think about that if you're in another country, how that also could apply to you, okay, with what you're hearing. I also believe, okay, that it's a little too little and a little too late. That as a result of it not being able to be taken care of at the time, that it may have perpetuated other problems. And again, this will apply regardless of where you live. In the United States, we have an easy answer. But I think that this is going to be true, and it's going to really depend on where you're living. I think this is going to be very true. It will also feel destined. Do those words sound familiar? A little bit too little and a little bit too late, and the fact that something feels so very destined? I think we can answer yes to that on all accounts, okay? Because we did just talk about all of this when I actually am showing this on Friday, but I actually just did that last video a few hours ago. So it's really interesting to me because I'm really seeing it back to back, and it's like, wow. So it's really, if you have not seen the Ingress videos, you might want to. So as I move down here, I'm going to talk about how advice is going to get us to ponder on things. I'm going to talk about how again, it goes back to motherhood, to parents, to parent-child relationships, okay? I can also talk about how, again, not far out, not far enough really, is this idea of lies. It's still in there. It's still playing a part. So this is really, really important. And how those lies have hypnotized and caused faulty perceptions for many people. It's pretty bad when you look at it that way, actually. It also talks about how it is going to be a real enduring concept. We are going to endure many things as a result of this. So it is pretty interesting when you look at it that way. Then it goes down. So that was a fixed, yes. So then I'm going to be back immutable. And here it talks about, again, our psyche and how learning this stuff is, first of all, if you're a person who listens to psychics, not a lot of this is going to be a surprise. I know that sounds really funny, but psychics have been calling some of this stuff, and it actually says this, Delphi. That's what Delphi represents, that ability to look into the future. How that ability to look in the future has been in academia, how we've been learning these things. Well, you're going to learn them now on a psychic level. So it's a psychic, academic, and it is going to really start to bring up some of the validity and the credibility of a lot of the people that have been reading into what is going to happen. Even myself as an astrologer would play into this. So in a way that bodes well for us, but who it doesn't bode well for is anyone out there who has believed in the faulty perception of the big lie. So that's where you're going to get a little bit of the house shakeup. I can tell you that the information coming will be like a viper. That's what it tells me. that again, there's also this thing about affecting women. So again, the news probably about Roe versus Wade for those people here in this country. It's also referring to how the truth can be a champion, in a sense, okay? But I'm getting ahead of myself and actually scratch that, because that's really about something else, but the two do come together. So they are going to hit in some charts. I can tell you that that the that so I was at Viper, and then I went here, and then we're all the way down here. It's really going to be a chaos, but the chaos is really about making things fair. So it's going to be like everything is going to be shook up, and these are retrograde, so they're going to act normal. They're going to be a shake up so that things can be fair. It's also talking about computers and internets and social media in particular. So get ready. News is coming from that direction as well. It's also talking about new beginnings and how we really need to look at the new beginnings. There was a little gloom and doom as well. I had talked about that. It is also referring to the fact that, again, we go back into solving problems, but we need to look at marriage. We need to look at, here we go, partnerships, but it's Bano. So it's really talking about more of the institution of marriage. It also refers to that disruption or interruption, like things go along their merry way, but then there's a disruption or an interruption of where those goals are or where we're headed. And again, this could be the whole, Roe versus Wade thing, because if a woman gets pregnant and she's forced to keep this child, how many issues will that bring up in a family? And how many direction changes will it represent? I'm going to go with a lot. It is reminding us that one of the things we're grieving about right now is, I believe, the loss of kindness and the need to be kind, which I did speak about in the last video as well. So I'm back, and I just want to thank you for listening. I'm trying to keep these things a little bit shorter. This was really short. Normally I can drone on for these, but I didn't really want to. And some of the reasons why I didn't really want to is, number one, I wanted to make these more about the asteroids. The second thing is that I really wanted to look at the new moon in correlation with the last two videos. But there is one thing. Let's go back and check one thing that I didn't do. So I'm back. Let me make sure I'm on not the sorted. There we go. I did want to take a peek, and just a peek. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I'm really doing good with these videos. So, maybe 8 minutes more is it. But I did want to talk about some things. I want to talk about the fact that the sun and the moon, here we are, wait a minute, square the midheaven in this chart. That what's going on, and this makes sense with Letitia's, is not in line with where we're headed. Okay? That this particular new moon can actually mean that we have to work really hard to get ourselves back on track, and that what will happen this new moon will kind of point out that people are not on track. Now, this is this chart. If you're anywhere else in the world, that won't be so much of an issue, and I'll get to some other things that will be an issue. Okay? I think that when you start looking at, okay, I'll give you an example. There's a big poll out there that says no one's really happy with the direction of the country. But I don't think that's the president's fault. Nor do I think it's the Democrats' fault. I think, if anything, it's the fault of the fact that we do not have enough votes to make any real accomplishments or changes, and that the Republican Party is not a party of governing, but a party of resisting. And that's been true for some time. So they don't believe in the government doing things, so they don't do anything. And as a result, they hold up all of the policies. So please bear in mind that as these things begin to present themselves, as the abortion rights and all these other things come to pass, the insurrections, all of it is going to point out to us how much work we really need to do to kind of get us back on track. Now, if you're in another country, you're going to see that very differently. And maybe that's why I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. I also do want to point out that the sun and moon are also contraparallel to Cupido. And again, I think some of these these aspects are going to be true regardless of where you live. So the sun and the moon are running counter to the family, to the organizations, and to organization in general. But remember that what was really strong was this idea of being on your own or going out on your own, which again would cause an opposition to the group or to the family. Okay? The other thing that I think is worth looking at, the moon and the sun both have an aspect to Pluto, contraparallel, an opposition. So there's transitions going on around us that we could be resisting. That's part of it. And I think some people are resisting. I think that here we go again with, you have a lot of division in the world. Every country's a little divided between what you call your conservatives and your progressives, basically, or Labor Party, or whatever you want to call it. But realize this, that what people call conservative today are just really people who want to stand in the way of progress. They don't want the world to progressively change. They don't want people to be smarter. They want people to tell us what to do, and those days are going to be over because we're all smarter. So there is this whole push not to have things change, and that's going on. I like this. The sun and the moon are also conjuncting Adamite, and that is the trans-Neptunian. And that means that we are resistant and that we will stand up. There's that Uranus in the factor as well. Now, Uranus does not make an aspect here. It makes an aspect in the actual dials, which we've seen. But it does bode well for that. But I like this too. How about the parallel to Hades? How about the fact that we're going to be learning about terrible things that have happened, about how people took advantage and were degrading the laws of the country. Now, again, if you're in another country, it's still going to show up. It will show up differently. But look out for that. How about the parallel to the Chronos? Because I can tell you in this country, the thing we're going after is the crimes by those people in authorities. We're going after leaders. Not one leader, although there is one main one, but there are other leaders who are guilty. If you're in another country, maybe you're looking at what's going on in the United States. Maybe that is important to wherever you are, but it could also be people that you're dealing with. So watch out for your doctors. Watch out for your leaders. Watch out for people that are doing things that are not proactively healthy, but maybe proactively bad. Remember, the self-destructive quality was in the Mars retrograde. I'm sorry, I keep saying retrograde, ingress chart. Okay? There's no retrograde on Venus or Mars. They ingressed. But these are just a few things that I really wanted to go through, and I did forget. But again, not the midheaven in particular, not going to be as affected because it's going to be a different chart depending on where you live. And I think I'm just making sure that I did everything. That, for example, there really, you would think there's a healthy amount that the sun and moon are in aspect to, but ironically, Earth, which is that point opposite the sun, has even more. Just not sure what that means, except for I think it's going to be an exciting month. That's what I really think. So I'm back again, and it was like a two-parter in one, but that last few minutes was only a few minutes, just like I wanted it to be. So again, I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter, making them a little bit easier to digest, but I did want to go through some of those aspects I had completely forgotten about them, and the majority of them will affect you regardless of where you are in the world, which is why I felt it was important. With that said, as I always leave you, first, thank you for watching the video. Secondly, until we meet again, I wish you only happy readings. Take care, my friends.